What is going on? What is going on? You you won't believe what I found in there. Hey guys, what is happening? Jamie here again, and welcome to another game hunting vlog here on Sidescrollin. It is Mega Haul week. Hoo-wee! I can't wait. I have been scouring eBay, looking to get some Nintendo cardboard on this shelf, some retro Nintendo. Finally into the collection. I've got the budget now from those games that we managed to sell last week and the week before to actually get some games on the shelf. I've found quite a few. I might have gone a bit overboard. We'll have a look at the end of the week, and you can be the judge of that. But I'm very happy with what I'm found. I'm still looking. I'm still hoping to get some in. But yeah, some good stuff, some good memories coming in this week around Nintendo retro stuff. So that'll be very exciting. I'm about to head out on my rounds this morning. I've got a few jobs I need to do. Busy week here this week because it is convention week. I've got Supernova coming up on the weekend. I've got a lot of prep I still need to do for that. And this week will be my first and last opportunity to actually get that stuff done. But on my rounds, I'm going to stop in and do a little bit of a video game hunt locally. I've done something a little bit different this time. We'll talk about that soon. But I've got a few locations marked out that I want to stop in and check out. But before we do that, I've got to get this haul that's sitting here from last week put away and find homes for everything on the shelf here. So I'm going to get stuck into that now, and then yeah, we'll hit the town. We'll get going. All right, things are rehoused. I'm sure I'm going to have to organize and reorganize this thing several times as we add stuff into the shelves, remove the filler, make space for the actual games. I've just shuffled some things around there now to make some spots. One other thing I've done this morning as well is I have ordered a piece of artwork for this big old blank wall here next to the PC, and I think it's going to look fantastic. Hopefully it gets here this week. Maybe. I'm doubtful. It'll probably be on next week's vlog, but if it does show up this week, I will show you, and then in the vlog afterwards I will get that set up. Yeah, really looking forward to that. All right, let's get out of here and get hunting. All right, so we're here at stop number 1. So what I've done this time, right, is I actually jumped onto Google and had a look around at all the secondhand stores in town that I've never been in before or didn't know existed. Turned up a few actually, and then what I've done is I've given them all a call ahead of time to see if they actually carry video games or if they ever come through, right? Of the 5 that I spoke to, 1 didn't. It was only a furniture store. 3 said they had video games in stock at the moment, one of which I'm parked outside of now. This was the most hesitant when I asked. Yeah, we got video games, yeah. So I don't know what I'm actually going to find when I walk in here. That's why I'm crossing it off potentially first. And one of them had no video games right now, but they said they do get them through and they never sell or get anyone asking for them. So they said they can keep them aside for me. And I gave them my name and number. And yeah, she's very politely said when they stack up a few, she'll give me a call and let me know, and I'll go down and I'll have a look and see what I want. So that was fantastic. That's brilliant. But yeah, so we're going to go into this unsure one first and see what they've got. And then through different points of today, scattered throughout other things I'm doing, I'll stop into the other ones that said that they have video games in stock, and we'll see what they've got going on. So let's go in here and see what we can find. my god. Oh my god. I can't believe what I just found. Holy moly. That's unreal. I am... Holy... I can't believe that. Yeah, that was worth stopping in. That's not quite a Grail game, but it's pretty close. That's pretty close to a Grail for me. I can't believe I just walked in there and found that just sitting on the shelf there. That's unreal. That is unreal. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, I spent a lot longer in there than I meant to because once I saw that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have a really good look in here. I'll definitely be putting them back on the list. They had a decent selection of, like they had a few games, but mostly DVDs. But yeah, you never know what you'll find. Like anywhere that's got that sort of techie sort of stuff, I'll stop in and make it a regular stop. But yeah, that was, I am so glad. I am so glad that I made the choice to come and look in there. Yeah. Holy shit, that's unreal. All right, I'm going to go and get some jobs done, and then a little bit later on this afternoon, we'll pop out again and I'll look into those other 2 stores that I had on my list. So let's go and get on with things. All right, shop number 2. This is a Red Cross shop. I thought this place had closed down, actually. I have been here once, many years ago. They were very expensive, and I thought it had shut down, but apparently not. I'm here on a tip-off of the lovely lady I spoke to at one of the shops who didn't have any games but said she'd keep an eye out for me and took my details. She suggested I come and check in here, so I'll duck in here. I haven't been here for years. We'll see if there's anything on the shelves for me and can continue a lucky streak, hopefully. What is going on? What is going on? You won't believe what I found in there. Oh my god, this is turning into be... I didn't expect to go secondhand store shopping today. You know, I had a lot on. I thought I'll poke into a couple while I'm out. It's turning out to be like one of the best op shop days I've had since I started this fucking thing. Oh my god, that's unreal. That is unreal what I just scored in there. That's crazy. I'll show you at the end of the week. Let's get on to the next one. Let's keep this thing going. Alright. Now I've had time to collect myself after that absolute score. They actually didn't have anything out. Like there were no games at all. Just a couple of DVDs on a tray outside, and I said, I just walked in and said, hey look, I'm chasing video games. Do you have any in stock? And then they pulled out that giant stack of games full of just gems, absolute gems. So always ask if you don't see any. It's worth asking. They took my name and number as well, actually. Really, really nice people in there. And they're also going to give me a text if they ever get anything in stock. So that was really cool. All right. So we're going to head up to our last stop of the day. Surely this one's going to be a bust, surely. But it is right next to, funnily enough, the CEX. So I'm on a hot streak day like this, I may as well stop in and have a look, right? You never know. And then we'll mosey over to the last shop. There's also actually a pawnbroker just near here that I've never been to either. So I'm going to, while I'm in the area, I might as well walk around the corner and have a look in there as well. Again, on a day like today, I feel like I need to go and buy a fucking lottery ticket or something. This is crazy. All right, let's go. No love at CEX. Almost had a win. I had something there that I wanted that I actually went in for last week, but it didn't have a manual. So you can get it for not that much more online with a manual complete. So I thought I'll leave that there and try my luck online instead. So yeah, not to worry. We're walking up to this next op shop now, and we'll call in at the pawn shop on the way back. See how we go. Well, there's the bus. Oh man, maybe I should have emphasized the S in video games plural when I called to check if they had any. Oh, one lonely little one. Oh dear. All right, not to worry, it's been a win of a day, so can't complain. I'm going to swing by this pawn shop now, see if they've got anything interesting, and then homeward bound. Yeah, interesting. What a cool place. It's the first one I've seen that's had actual retro kit for sale, which is pretty cool. A bunch of NES carts, Sega carts, loose N64 carts. Sorry about the traffic noise. Had a chat to the guy. He reckons he gets a bit of retro through the place, which is cool. Nothing today that I was chasing. I'm trying to get boxed, complete in-box stuff. But you can always piece it together if you find something particularly rare as a loose cart and try and track down the manual and box separately. So yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. I mean, prices were a bit all over the place. He had some NES carts that were what I thought seemed very cheap. Most of his N64 stuff was $20 or so, which I thought was all right. But then you had some Wii games that were pretty expensive for things like, you know, Link's crossbow training and whatnot. So a bit all over the place with the pricing. But just a cool little place to poke the nose in and have a look. Yeah, I'm glad I stopped in. Didn't pick anything up, didn't find anything I wanted. Kind of, you know, in places like that, they know the value of what they have. You're not going to really find a bargain in somewhere like that. It's more coming across a gem that you can't find somewhere else. That's, you know, where pawn shops tend to shine. Yeah, not a bad end to the day, really. Just to have a look over all the old consoles and cartridges and stuff in there, have a bit of a chat. It was nice. All right, I'm gonna head home and call the hunt a day for today. Successful day. Job's done. Morning, guys. New day here, Tuesday morning today. Big work day for me today. I was up way too late playing Pepper Grinder last night. It's not really my kind of game, but it had like this kind of like addictive, Moorish quality to it. You know, like it was like a one more run kind of game. And yeah, that took me to much later in the night than I expected it to. Even with just the demo. Ferociously difficult, way too difficult for me. My old man eyes were struggling to keep up, even just with the early demo levels. But yeah, interesting game. If you like, you know, like a fast-paced kind of Sonic style 2D platformer, I'd say definitely check it out. So today, like I said, big work day. I've got to go and get some jobs done, get some things picked up. On my way back home, I'm going to swing past my local Vinnie's, my good old boxes in the floor Vinnie's, just because I'll have to drive past it to get home. So we'll just see if they've got anything in there. But otherwise, that's going to be it for me today. And yeah, I might do some streaming later. If I can get all my work done today in time, I might reward myself with a bit of a stream of maybe some Streets of Rage. I think we'll see how we go. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with it. Okay. All right, so I've found something in there. Nothing I was chasing. I mainly just grabbed it because it might be a good resell. I'll just ask the guys in there if they get very many video games through, and he said, yeah, we do. We get a lot. I don't know if people are just beating me to the punch or something. I never see a whole lot there, but he said he would take my name and he's going to go and check out the back. And if I want to pop back in tomorrow, he's going to keep them behind the counter for me if he's got any. So, you know, it's only a couple of minutes drive from home, so I might just duck back down tomorrow just to see if they've got any hiding away out the back that weren't out on the floor, and see if there's anything interesting. But yeah, I grabbed a couple of things, a couple of nostalgia-induced picks out of the DVD selection there. But I think that's something I might talk about at the end of the week. Actually, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is physical media. But yeah, we'll get into that later on. Mr. Postman, bring me a dream. Bring me the best games I've ever seen, Mr. Postman. All right, and we are back in the game room to do the wrap up and see what the week's hunting turned up. So it's a little bit shorter vlog this week. I'm going to think I might try and keep them a bit shorter, keep them a bit more focused to the actual game hunting. You know, I might do some other videos around cleaning cartridges and cleaning consoles and any game room developments, and I might split them off into their own videos just so these don't go for a couple of hours, because I do like to sit here and yabber on at the end when we go through them all. Wow, yeah, what a week. Oh my goodness. This is unreal. This is so good. So I've got an absolute mountain of stuff sitting next to me here, including 7 pieces of retro Nintendo for the shelf, one of which is a Grail game. Yes. I'm super excited. So I'm actually, doing the recording of the wrap up a little bit earlier this week because I've got to crack on with getting prepped for the convention. So I'm not going to be out doing any hunting or eBaying for the rest of the week. But you'll be watching this on a Sunday where I will already be there on the show floor. Hey, look, if you happen to be there in the area, come and say hi. I'd love to hang out and have a chat. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go through, as usual, the secondhand store finds first. We'll talk about those. And then we'll get on to the eBay haul, which is where all the retro Nintendo stuff is. I'm going to save, because I'm a tease, I'm going to save the haul that I found at the Red Cross op shop until last. That was the second place that I stopped into where, just couldn't believe what I found in there. But some really good finds all across the board this week for sure. All right, let's crack on and get into it. So the first stop I made was to the RSPCA secondhand store here in town, and never been there before. Didn't know what to expect. That's the place I called ahead, and they didn't seem very sure whether they had video games or not in stock. They did happen to have video games in stock. They had a shelf of them there, and there were a couple of titles there that caught my eye that I couldn't just leave sit on the shelf, especially at the princely sum of $2 each that they were selling them for. One of which, I mean, I was so shocked to see this game there on the shelf. It's one that I knew that I wanted. Like I said in the footage, it's not quite a Grail game, and this version of it isn't the version that I would love to own in the end. But even so, it's not a common game, I don't think. It's not something you see, certainly not in secondhand stores around here anyway. This is, niche enough, a kind of game that you need to go actually searching for it and find it specifically, right? It's not something you just stumble across. So when I did happen to just stumble across it, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So the first, before we get to that one, the first one I snapped up was Jade Empire. Now this is the PC version. I used to own this on the Xbox, on the original Xbox. And if I ever come across the Xbox version of this, that's the version that I would like to have on the shelf. But I don't think I've ever seen the PC version before. I'm not even 100% sure that I knew it was on PC. I thought it was Xbox only. So that was, an interesting find to have on the shelf, and that jumped out. So, it's not a game that I managed to sink a lot of time into back in the day. I wish I had, because it looks fantastic. It's certainly one that I was very interested in, and even though I owned it and played it a little bit, I think it just came along in an era where this style of game wasn't something that I was particularly seeking out. It wasn't an experience that I was... these big sort of deep RPG experiences. I'd played the Final Fantasies of the day, and what year did this come out? Does it say on here somewhere? I'm sure it does. 2002. So that's 2002. What are we looking at there? Around Final Fantasy X kind of era. Am I remembering that right? Maybe. Final Fantasy 9, 10, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's I was way into Diablo at the time, and so I was very much action RPG oriented, and this sort of bigger, slower, more open kind of RPG experience just wasn't one that I was looking for, even though I thought the theme was really, really cool and it looked really good. I'd love to see them do a remaster of this. I don't know if that's something that's already happened or if it's on the cards at all, but this is one I'd love to see come back and get another shot. I think they could do a really good job of sprucing this one up and making it look really nice and giving it a new lease on life, because it's one I'd like to take another shot at. But yeah, there we go. $2. Jade Empire on the PC. A version of the game that I just have never ever encountered before. And my other find was only 2 finds in the store there. The other one was the one that I couldn't believe was on the shelf that I walked into, and that was Arcanum. So Arcanum was a very niche action RPG. Gosh, how do you describe Arcanum? A little Diablo, a little Baldur's Gate. It was sort of this very interesting mashup of steampunk and magic. It's not a game that I spent a ton of time in because, again, it was competing with Diablo 2, and anything competing with Diablo 2 back in the day was sort of setting itself up for failure with me. But it's one that my friend Vinny really, really liked and played a lot of, and I watched him play quite a bit, and he showed me quite a bit of the game. It looked great. It looks like visually, it's like that sort of old school 2D, what do they call it? Isometric perspective. And it just had such a cool, interesting theme that I think I appreciate now more as an adult than I did as a teenager at the time. So again, this is another one I could see, if I had more free time on my hands, this is definitely a game I'd love to go back and revisit, and certainly another one I'd love to see a remaster of. Although whenever they remaster these games that were in that 2D isometric view and they remaster them into the 3D perspective, I don't know, I think it just loses a little something, It doesn't have a manual. I don't know that this version of the game did have a manual. It's got the discs there. I just remember I forgot to show you Jade Empire, but Jade Empire is complete in box. But this is also available, like a cardboard box. And the cardboard box has the jewel case, and that's the jewel case that I remember very fondly, and the manual. That's the version of the game that I would love to have for the shelf. It's very, very difficult to find. This is a little bit more common. Again, it's not a terribly expensive game. You can pick this up for around 20, 30, 35 bucks on eBay if you really want it. But yeah, $2? I was going to take that every day of the week. Yeah, it's one of those really just kind of super niche games that only people who played Arcanum know Arcanum even exists. And to see it there on a second-hand store shelf. And, to paint a picture of why, because you might be looking at this and going, what's the big deal? I don't live in a very big city or anything like that, right? It's a very, a fairly small community, and you don't get a whole lot of turnover in terms of video games on second-hand store shelves, which is why the haul this week is such a shock. When you walk into a secondhand store and they've got video games, it's usually 30 copies of Wii Fit and a couple of common Xbox 360 games if you're lucky, right? So seeing something like this on the shelf, was just kind of crazy. Just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe I walked in and there was Arcanum, and as soon as I saw it, it was just like this huge blast from the past. But anyway, another one I'd love to go back and revisit, and I might even try and find a way to do that, actually. That could be a cool stream to see if I can get a bit of Arcanum going. But yeah, from memory, I didn't like it as much as Diablo 2, but all the same, a really solid RPG if you like action RPGs, if you like stuff like, again, Baldur's Gate. I know Baldur's Gate's not an action RPG, but those old Dungeons & Dragons isometric RPGs, this probably had more in common with them than Diablo. Yeah, I remember it fondly, very, very, very fondly. So, yeah, a real win to find that one. I was very, very happy. The next stop was the Red Cross secondhand store. We'll get to that very shortly. I did duck into my local bookstore while I was out and about that day. I didn't record it because I was literally just in and out very, very fast. And I picked up a couple of DVDs actually, which is interesting, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So the first ones I managed to find were, don't know if you can see that, the Spider-Man trilogy, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. They're all in excellent condition. I know I already own this one because I got that. I picked up that collector's gift set. I think it was last week or the week before, and but it was it was the set for $3. You know, the trio for $3. They're all there. All the discs are there. The promo materials are there. The leaflets are there, except for Spider-Man 2. But yeah, I thought, you know, for the sake of $1, right? I can have this on the shelf and I can keep that collector's set intact, or as intact as I found it anyway. So I grabbed them. I did say, again, if I ever saw a copy of Spider-Man, I'd grab it. Number 3, not my favorite of the series. I think that's a fairly uncontroversial thing to say, but you know, it completes the trilogy, and it's a trilogy I still have a lot of good memories of. So I picked them up. The other one I picked up while I was in there was The Matrix. Now, let's talk about this for a second. So I'm not a DVD collector, right? Like I'm not trying to collect DVDs and movies and make a big wall of DVDs by any stretch of the imagination. I used to have quite a sizable collection of DVDs, but as the medium went digital, I got rid of all those. But now, like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older or if it's because things are actually changing. Like, you look at streaming services, right? And especially before streaming services, when there was, well, I mean, we didn't have this here in Australia, but cable TV, right? It got to the point where there were so many cable TV channels and everything was segregated so badly that streaming sort of came along as this catch-all fix, this this answer to this problem that was cable TV. And originally it was just Netflix, right? But there was this one place that you could go and they had all these movies and shows and originals and whatnot. And then as the years have gone by, like, it's kind of just followed almost beat for beat along the same lines as cable TV, where now we have, 100 different streaming services. They all segregated the rights to different movies and different series, so they're all split up everywhere. They all want subscriptions to each other. There's fucking subscription, like subscriptions within streaming subscriptions now, like Paramount Plus and shit like that. It's just kind of becoming this money grubbing mess. And, like, when it's easier for me to drive down to my secondhand store and grab a movie that I like for $1 and drive home than it is to jump onto a streaming service and play it, that's like, there's a fucking problem there. You know what I mean? Like, that shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be easier for me to get in my car and go and buy a movie than it is to sit on my couch and stream it. It's just kind of silly. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and a lot about, the transience, the impermanence of streaming media, the way that rights change hands, the way that, movies shift from one service to another, the way that they can just be dropped altogether, or whole series can just be dropped altogether, never to see the light of day ever again. And it makes me more appreciative of having, movies and shows and things like that I love really dearly, like The Matrix and the Spider-Man movies, having a physical copy of them on hand that I can just watch whenever I want, and just have that I own, like that I actually own and it's mine. So I have been flirting with the idea of actually starting to pick up a few of like my real top tier favorite movies on
either DVD or Blu-ray, and just to have them and keep them on the shelf just for the memory's sake, right? And just for the ownership of it, to have it and know that it's not going to be, if I want to watch The Matrix one day, I'm not going to have to hunt around and see who I have to set up a trial with or a subscription with in order to just watch this fucking thing, or to rent it out on a subscription service that I'm already paying for. Yeah, it's just fucking crazy. So anyway, that's my old man rant over about physical media. Let me know down in the comments below whether that's something that you guys agree with or not, whether physical medium is something that you find yourself moving back towards, or whether you're quite happy with the digital age, right? And the streaming services and the absolute tangled mess that's sort of become. And not to have a go or anything, like I get the appeal, certainly, but again, like, this was easier for me than actually watching it on stream, and now I can watch it anytime I want. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. Anyway, $1. The Matrix, $4 total spent in the bookshop for 4 great films. I popped into my local Vinnie's on a different day. They didn't really have a whole lot there going on. Certainly not video game wise. I talked to the guy, like I said, in the footage, and he said they get a lot of video games come through. I don't see a lot of change taking place in their library. I mean, of all the secondhand stores in my area, that's the one that I stop in the most regularly, because I could almost walk there. It's so close to my house. I literally drive past it every time I go to and from my house. So it's never too much of a bother just to stop in and have a look. And what they've got very rarely changes. So I don't know if somebody else is in there every day snapping up a ton of video games and I'm just missing out, or whether maybe not as many video games pass through there as he thinks they do. But I did grab a couple of movies in there, again, along the same thought pattern as my previous picks there. And they were the 2 Lord of the Rings films. I'm missing The Two Towers. Now, I do own Blu-ray, a beautiful collector's edition Blu-ray set of all of the Lord of the Rings movies. So, you know, again, these aren't a super big necessity, but I don't actually own a Blu-ray player. So I've got this set of movies that I can't watch, and that, you know, the Lord of the Rings is one that is not too hard to track down streaming wise, right? Like, I think it's in a few places. But again, for me, it's nostalgia, particularly of this. I remember pre-ordering this, and I did it for all 3 of them, but this was the first one, right? I remember pre-ordering this in a Video Easy back in the year, whatever it was that this came out, 2000, 2001, something like around those sort of mark. 2001. Back when, you know, do you remember when it used to take, you know, like 8 months for a movie to move from the cinema over to home media? Oh, man, back in the days. Now it's like almost simultaneous. But yeah, I remember pre-ordering this and being so excited to go and pick it up when it finally arrived. And I've actively spoken against pre-ordering stuff. I wasn't as wise back then, but, you know, for the Lord of the Rings, I was willing to make an exception. And just seeing this particular DVD case, just brought back a lot of memories of that time. So when they had it there, I grabbed it. They had Return of the King as well, so I just grabbed it. If I find the maroon Two Towers DVD, which I'm sure I will, they're not super uncommon, these. I'll snap that up as well, just to have the 3 that I remember getting. I think I got all 3 of them through that same Video Easy outlet that was actually right across the road from the cinema where I grew up. So yeah, that was just a cool little find. Again, $1 each. Not uncommon or hard to find by any means, but I'll keep an eye out for the one I'm missing. And I did pick up one game. I don't have any sort of nostalgic attachment or anything like that to this title. I only picked it up because it does have some some insignificant value, but more value than the $1 that I paid for it anyway. And that is Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Now this is all complete and in box with manual and disc. I never played this. It always looked interesting. I don't know how good of a game it is. I'm going to assume it's just kind of a collection of mini games, and I'm also going to assume that it's not great. I've never read, if it was this bang and amazing game, I'm sure I would have heard about it, but I haven't really heard anything about it. But funnily enough, it does hold a little bit of value. I think it's got a bit of trade-in at CEX. It sells online for about a tenner or so. So yeah, for the sake of a buck, I picked it up just to potentially move on, either privately or trade it in at CEX. Although I'm not sure how much use that's going to do me because, the more I go in and visit CEX, the more I'm starting to realize that our CEX here is kind of shit. They just never seem to have really much of interest at all, and I'm guessing their pricing is pretty standard, but they're completely non-negotiable on the prices. As we saw with the Monster Hunter having a hole in the case, they weren't going to budge an inch on how much it cost. And I just never really see much in there that I'm actively chasing. It's more kind of something to do as I'm doing other things to kill some time. So yeah, this might actually end up more on eBay. I'll have to think about it anyway, but yeah. There we go. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Maybe I'll even, pop it in and give it a play and just see what it's like one day. Probably not. But if you've played it, and if it is worth playing, leave me a comment and let me know. Otherwise, it will probably go in the to sell pile. Okay, now let's talk about the haul that I got at the Red Cross. So I've picked up 6 games from that place, and I left, almost double that there. I think I cherry picked all the ones that I thought had some value. And I said at the start of this whole venture, right, that I'm not trying to collect for value. I'm not someone who's just going to buy games because they're worth money if I don't have any nostalgic attachment to them, or they don't have any kind of sentimental value to me. I definitely broke that rule at this place. Because I was not going to leave some of these titles there for what they were charging. So I'm going to run through these. I'm going to show you what I found. All of these were $2 each, okay? Just keep that in mind as we go down the list, all right? So, first up was, I think, a bit of a bust. I grabbed it because I'd never seen it before. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know it existed. And I thought it looked cool, to be perfectly honest. But I've checked it out since, and it's not really worth anything. And that is Ferrari Challenge Deluxe for the Wii. Just had a really cool cover, a really striking cover. The back looks great. And I'd never heard of it before. Didn't know it existed. It's all there. Complete in box. It's in really good condition. Perhaps an unwanted gift that's never been played or used. Yeah, $2. I think it's probably worth like $4 or something like that. Like it's really not worth anything at all to resell on eBay. So I'm not sure what I'll end up doing with this one. It might end up being like a giveaway or a donation or something like that. But anyway, that was the first one they had that I grabbed. Now they had some PlayStation 2 stuff. They had a bit of PlayStation 2 actually. I snatched up 2 of the titles that they had just because, again, I recognized them and it sort of was hopeful that they might be worth reselling or gifting to somebody who will appreciate them. The first is Onimusha Warlords. So this is one I recognized, but never played. In a hungry world of darkness and magic power, hungry warlords battle one another for control of feudal Japan. I think the Onimusha is a series of games, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? But yeah, never played this one. Unfortunately, I can see like there's a price sticker still attached to it of $98.95. Holy shit. Interesting. That's an expensive fucking game. My goodness. We complain now about games being expensive, but like nearly $100 for a PlayStation 2 game back in the day. That's pricey. Now, I didn't realize until after I left that this is actually broken. You can see it's all there. It's complete in box, but you can see that the case is actually cracked here. So I might be able to rehome it in another case if I can find one. But it is all there. The actual manual and disc are in really good condition. Yeah, one I'd be interested in trying. It looks like my cup of tea. I don't know why it passed me by back in the day, actually. I don't know why I never gave it a go. I probably should have. Capcom title. Yeah. There we go. So, Onimusha Warlords. That's one that they had there. $2. I snapped that up. And that will find a home. I think that one sells on eBay for around $15 or so. Somewhere around that sort of mark. Next one, I recognize the series. I've never played a game in this series. And I think it's because during this era, or during the early era, I was more of a Nintendo guy, right? And this was a PlayStation series. So I was just purely for lack of exposure. I've never really played any of them, but I think I'd really like them, and maybe I should give them a go. But the next one is Ridge Racer 5 or V. I'm going to guess it's 5. So again, complete in box and in very, very good condition. Yeah, $2. Again, I think this one sells for about $15 odd on eBay. It's got about an $8 trade-in or something similar. Maybe I think it was $6 to $8 trade-in at CEX. So yeah, for the sake of $2, again, I'm not sure what I'll do. Yeah, they look great. I've always been aware of Ridge Racer. I've seen Ridge Racer. I've had friends who played Ridge Racer. And again, I love an arcade racing game, so there's no reason why I wouldn't like this. If I ever have a means of trying either this one or another Ridge Racer out, I would very much like to. So I'm a little pissed that I missed it back in the day, actually, because back then I really, really did enjoy an arcade racer. All right, next is a PlayStation 3 title. Again, unsure of its value. I think it's around probably $12 to $15 odd on eBay. And it's got it's covered in stickers. It's going to need some work, but that is Ninja Gaiden Sigma. So let's have a look at this one. I don't think I checked the disc. Oh, yep, all there. It does have a manual. I wasn't sure if it had a manual or not. Pretty much perfect condition, again, other than all the stickers on it. I think they'll peel off pretty easily, though. That shouldn't be too much of a bother. It needs a bit of a clean-up. It's got a bit of a crease in the cover, as you can see there. So I'm not sure what's happened there, whether the label's been taken out at some point and rehoused perhaps into this case. It could be that this is an aftermarket case. I don't know enough about PS3 games to know for sure, but I'm going to guess this is an aftermarket case that's rehousing the game. Yeah, again, $2. A Ninja Gaiden title. I had the first one back, well, not the first one, not the old retro one. I had the one on the Xbox, the just Ninja Gaiden. Ferociously difficult game. Holy shit. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it, but I couldn't get anywhere in it. Such slick combat, though. Really, really good combat, but just bonkers hard. Too hard for my infantile brain back then. Next up, I grabbed another Wii title. And again, anything Sonic tends to have some kind of value to it, you know. This is a game, again, I don't see it terribly often. There's usually other titles that I see more frequently than this one, and that is Sonic and the Secret Rings. Speak, man, speak. So this one looks in really, really good condition. Like, this is basically brand new. There we go. Complete in box. Disc and manual. Nice big manual too, which is cool. Again, I'm not a Sonic guy. I haven't ever played this particular game, or I think really any of Sonic's 3D outings. I only recently played the first Sonic the Hedgehog for the very first time this year for the Mega Drive. So not one that I've ever had a whole ton of interest in, but if I can figure out a way to play this, Madam is a big Sonic fan. She might enjoy this one. So Yeah, I might run that past her before I move that on. But otherwise, that will probably be finding a new home somewhere, somehow. But yeah, Sonic and the Secret Rings. Just your standard sort of Sonic 3D platform by the looks of things. But in really, really good nick, really spotless condition. But all of that is eclipsed by this next one. This next game I'm about to show you is, I think, not just my best secondhand store find since I started doing, this whole project, but it might just be my best secondhand store find ever. Yeah, this is the one where I don't know. I don't think you were able to see it in the footage, but it was hard to film because the lady was standing right next to me. It felt a bit awkward just recording everything right there. But as soon as she brought out that stack of games, my eyes immediately landed on this, the spine of this game, and I knew it wouldn't have mattered what she said that she was charging for them. I was walking out of there with this game, at least this game. When she said they were $2 each, I grabbed it immediately, and I don't think I put it down, just in case something happened, right? Yeah, an incredible find. I couldn't believe that I came across it. I couldn't believe it was in that secondhand store, and I can't believe still that it was $2. Yeah, this is bonkers. Anyway, it's a PlayStation 2 game. A very famous PlayStation 2 game, also very niche and very, very hard to come by, even on the second-hand market, let alone walking into a second-hand store and finding it on a shelf or in a back room somewhere, and that is Ico. Not just Ico, but the limited edition, collector's edition of Ico. Oh my god! So someone's clearly donated an entire pile of games when they've gone into this place, and this has just been amongst them, and they just, I guess, haven't realized the value of what they had. Yeah, I was speechless. I struggled not to make a sound akin to that of a teenage girl when she brought out those games, and I saw this in the stack. Let's have a look at it. So the case itself is fairly well loved. It's pretty worn. It's hard to tell because they've gone that kind of parchmenty look to the cardboard with this release. So it's hard to tell, like, what's dirt, what's intentionally supposed to look that way. But even just like the corners and things there, you can see on the bottom there that it's a little bit dog-eared. The tops are the corners, they're all just a bit scuffed with age. But it's still largely intact with no price stickers, no nothing on them, because getting price stickers off of cardboard is ridiculously difficult. And this isn't like shiny cardboard, it's like that matte kind of finish. But inside, this thing is complete. It's all here. So it's got this little slipcase inside, front and back. And then as we open it up, we have the disc, as well as all of the documentation. We'll bring this out and have a look. So there's a manual. And the manual's like in perfect condition. And I mean spotless, really. There's a little bit of bending down the bottom. You can see it there on the bottom there. But otherwise, this thing is pretty immaculate. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 art cards. They look like almost like postcards. So there we go. Now I could be wrong, and there's actually more to this collector's edition than what I have here. But I'm going to go ahead and just make the bold statement that this is everything. If it's not, let me know. So there's 4 art cards, which is what it says on the cover. Well, it just says limited edition art cards included. There's 4 of them there, along with the manual, in this gorgeous fold-out slipcover. I'll show you the whole thing without the disc or The art card's inserted. There we go. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I think the only thing that even comes close to rivaling this would be when I found my copy of Ocarina of Time 3D in those Vinnie's floor bins for $5, or when I found a Generation 1 Optimus Prime in that same Vinnie's, actually, on a completely different year for, I think, 80 cents. That was insane. But it was a bit beat up. Didn't have any of its kit. It was just the Transformer itself. I ended up giving that to Scott, who I think ended up regifting it on to somebody else because he's an ungrateful son of a bitch. But yeah, this is up there. This is right up there, especially in this kind of condition. And for $2, unreal. That whole day was worth it for this. So I looked this up on eBay. This sells on eBay for, gosh, 70, 80, 90 or more dollars, depending on condition. Yeah, just crazy. So that one, I've never actually played Ico. I have played a bit of Shadow of the Colossus. I watched Sam actually play through, my buddy Sam on the channel. I watched him play through Shadow of the Colossus. And I've got very, very, very good memories of that. But I've never actually played its predecessor, Ico. So, but that's one I'm going to keep. That's one that's going to go on the shelf just because that is a spectacular find. And again, if I can find a way to actually play it, I'll give it a whirl. Because yeah, I'm sure it hasn't aged terribly well, but just to say I've experienced it, you know. But yeah, what a find! $2, Ico, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So they were my in-person second-hand store finds for the week. Now let's get into. If I make some space over here. Let's get into the retro Nintendo haul. So as I said, I've got 7 titles here. So the way I went about this was... So as I said at the beginning of the vlog, that I managed to sell a decent collection of my unwanted board games with the intention of transferring those funds into... the video game collection and giving me a bit of money to actually get some decent retro gear, right? Because again, I'm looking for boxed copies of things, which immediately, when you're talking not just loose carts, as soon as you add that box into the equation, price jumps up drastically. I'm looking for complete in-box copies of things. So again, that just steps it up another notch. So I had a really good think about what I wanted to do here. Now, I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, right? But I didn't want to just go and buy, you know, a bunch of Grails. I mean, I couldn't have afforded to buy a bunch of Grails. I could have maybe purchased 2 Grail games with the funds I had, maybe. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to just buy my way through the collection. That's not the point of the whole exercise. The chase is where the fun is. Like, trying to find these things as cheaply as possible is where I get the enjoyment, not just buying the thing and getting it, you know. It's the finding that's the fun part. So what I've done is I've gone for a lot of the lower tier titles. Now, most of this is Nintendo 64. And I think the more I looked and the more I trawled through eBay and came across all these different titles that I remember, I started to realize that the entire Nintendo 64 library is nostalgic to me in some way, even if they're games I either didn't like or haven't played, because, you know, I would have read about them in Nintendo N64 Gamer magazine, right? And, you know, back then, if you were lucky enough to get a copy of N64 Gamer as a kid, you read that thing cover to cover 6 or 7 times, whether they were talking about games you were interested in or not, right? Because who knows if you were going to get another magazine or when that would be. So I've developed these attachments to so many Nintendo 64 games because they all, it's hard to describe, they all give me the feeling of that era, right? Again, whether they were my favorite games or even if I didn't even particularly like them. They all are reminiscent of an era of my life that I remember very, very fondly, and that is that Nintendo 64 era. So that's very good for me, because what that means is I don't feel like I'm constricted to just these top tier, super expensive titles, right? That I can basically, if I see Nintendo 64 complete in box in fairly decent condition, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well, I'm going to buy it because it still reminds me of that time, and luckily for me, a lot of the lower tier Nintendo 64 games of the era can be gotten very, very cheap, which is why I've managed to get so many on such a, what is a very, very modest budget. And I've done that on purpose. So I've gone about sort of snapping up. I still love all of these games. There's not a game here that I actively dislike, right? I still have very fond memories of everything that's sitting here. All of these games were very much on my list to have on the shelf. Okay, so none of these are just, I'm buying it because it's cheap. But also what I've done is sort of focused on that for this run, and then I've kept some of my budget aside for when I come across those really big high tier titles that I know are going to be pricey. There's still some that I don't expect that I'll ever be able to afford, right? Like things like Mario Party, things like Pokemon Stadium, things like Pokemon Snap, things like Ocarina of Time boxed, like Majora's Mask, like those sort of titles, I'm sort of resigned to the fact that they're probably complete in box. They're never going to exist on this shelf behind me, and that's okay, because I think there's an awful lot in that library that I can afford to get on this shelf, and that will all invoke that feeling of nostalgia for me. So without prattling on any longer, let's go ahead and get into everything that I got, including the Grail game that I found with an equally just kind of bonkers story attached to it as Ico. Yeah, we'll get to that. I'll save that one for the end. We'll get through everything else first. So firstly, let's get into all the Nintendo 64 stuff. So we'll start with the racing game. So I played a lot of racing games back in the day. My mum is a huge racing fan, was a huge racing fan back then. So we owned and rented a lot of racing games. Just about every racing game on the 64, I've had some encounter with at some point, right? Some of these we owned. The first of which we definitely owned. This was the very first, so this is a little bit special actually, the very first piece of retro Nintendo that I have bought on this hunt. This is it. It's not a very well known or loved title, but it's the first one, damn it, and that makes it special on two fronts, not just for the memories. And that is F1 World Grand Prix. So we owned this game. I played this game a lot. Because it was one, we didn't own a lot of Nintendo 64 titles. It was, again, mostly rentals, but this is one that we did own. I'm guessing because it was fairly cheap back then in the day, and it was very cheap now. I think, what did this set me back on my list here? So complete in box, and it is complete. It has the manual and the cart. I'm wondering if I should take these out and show you or not. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. Here we go. Cartridge in good condition, manual in very good condition. It's all there. The insert has a tear on it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I mean, it's not hard to get I don't know if that's going to show up. Oh, there it is. You can see that tear there. Swapping the insert out for a fresh one isn't terribly difficult or costly. I've got a few lying around now, just in case, if I'm going to embark on this Nintendo 64 journey. And the box is in very, very good condition. And especially when you chuck a box protector on it, this game looks really, really nice. You'll probably see the footage over the top now of the box. But yeah, played a ton of this. You know, this is an age where you don't get very many games very frequently, and so what you have, you play the absolute shit out of. And this is one I definitely played the absolute shit out of, even though I wasn't terribly fond of F1 or had very much interest in F1. This was certainly more along this sim racing line than arcade racing. But you know, I still had a lot of fun with it. And you know, it's back in the day where if you weren't having fun with it, you made your own fun with it by racing around the track backwards or something like that, you know. But yeah, good memories around this one. Many an afternoon, rainy afternoon spent on the F1 track. And for the total sum of $25, this cost me. $25 for a complete in-box Nintendo 64 anything. I will pay, especially when it's in this kind of condition. Yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. I don't care what game it is. If it's $25, $25 complete in-box Nintendo anything. It doesn't even have to be Nintendo 64, you know. That's kind of crazy, you know. So I got a really good deal on that one. Now the box is in good condition. There are a few like nicks and tears, and I just want to talk about that briefly, about what I'm looking for when I'm trying to collect these games, because you know, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, original Game Boy, Nintendo 64, all the retro cardboard games, right? NES. They're all going to have some measure of wear and tear because it's fucking cardboard, okay? And it's probably been through the hands of many a child. But I'm actually good with that. Like, I'm not interested in collecting mint condition things, because my stuff that I owned back then, in a family with 4 boys, was not in mint condition by a long stretch. And so the kind of like the scuffing and the tears and the dog ears you can see down here, stuff like that, I actually want that in the games that I find. I actually like that. I like them having shown signs of love over the years, you know, having a little bit of rough and tumble, a little bit of wear. It gives it some character, I think. And I don't know, it just adds to it for me, which is a weird thing, I imagine, for people collecting games. You know, like, people tend to want things in as good a condition as possible. And don't get me wrong, I want games to be I want them to be together, you know, I want them to be in good condition. But if it's missing a tab, or if it's got a little tear, it's got some sticker on it or something like that, that actually is more appealing to me, not only because it invokes the nostalgia even more, but because it's a damn sight fucking cheaper than buying mint in box games. So yeah, for me, brilliant. You know, that's all part of the experience. So anyway, there we go. F1 World Grand Prix, my very first Nintendo piece of retro cardboard for the shelf I've bought on this venture. But it will certainly not be the last at all. Here's another one for you. Another racing game, very much more an arcade racer this time. I've actually talked about this game before on the channel because I encountered it in a cash converters for, I think, $10 they wanted for it, the loose cart. I now have the complete in-box version, and that is Multi Racing Championship. I've got really, really, really good memories of this game. We didn't own it, but this game we rented for some reason, and I don't know why. Whenever we went away on our family holiday every year, we always went to the same place, this tiny little fishing village on the coast. And there was this kind of Aladdin's cave of a video rental place there. It was like this really cramped, dingy kind of joint, but, you know, where just floor to ceiling was just stacked with stuff, right? And it's like everywhere you looked, there was boxes of, you know, cover art of games and VHSs and things like that. And for whatever reason, we would rent this game every single year that we went down there. Now, I've got a feeling that we did end up owning it eventually, but for a long, long time, that was where we played this game. It was a weekly rental. We went away for 2 weeks. We rented it twice so that we had it the entire time. And my brothers and I would just play and play and play this game. And so seeing this box, this cover art, immediately takes me back to that time in that place. Sitting on the lounge room floor in that crappy rundown fishing hut kind of holiday house, playing Multi-Racing Championship. So yeah, this was definitely very high on the list of I want to own a copy of this because it just has such wonderful memories attached to it for me. Now, this is another complete in box. This box is in fantastic condition. Having just talked about like not wanting mint condition stuff, this box is really, really well maintained. It's held up remarkably well. But again, it's all there. We've got the manual there. We've got our cartridge there. Nice and clean. Really good condition. All the cartridges that I managed to track down are in pretty good nick, actually. And money-wise, this one, complete in box, again, because it's not a terribly highly sought-after game, not a terribly well-loved game. This one cost me $30, my list says. For complete in-box retro Nintendo. Just kind of crazy. I'm actually like, as I was getting into this, I started to become very, very grateful that the games that my parents chose to buy were like obscure racing games that no one gives a shit about. Because it means that they've been really cheap and easy to reacquire all these years back. And they probably paid a damn sight more for these games back then in the day. So thanks, Mum and Dad, for your taste in 64 games. Anyway, there we go. Multi-Racing Championship. Let me know if you played this one. I really liked it. I thought it was fantastic. And that's probably, I think, the best conditioned box out of any of the ones sitting in front of me here. It's really, really good nick, that one. So from a really, really good conditioned box to an absolute beat to shit box. But again, we're still on the racing kick here at the moment. This is another arcade racer, another rental for me. Not one that I rented all the time, but I always loved the cover of this box. I just thought it was just such a cool cover image. And that is San Francisco Rush. Now this box, when I got this box in the mail, it was absolutely beat to shit. And I mean, like, you can see there's a tear on one end there. It's missing some tabs. There's a tear on the other side where it's had tape on it that wraps around, as you can see. So it's got tears and scuffs and dog ears and everything all over it, but it was just battered when it showed up. I've restored this. Oh, it was covered in tape as well. It had a lot of sticky tape on it. So I've since managed to clean it up and restore it and got it looking, I think, half respectable again. It did not look like this when it turned up in the mail. But I knew that. I knew that when I bought it. I knew from the picture on eBay that it was, absolutely wrecked. And that's why it was being sold for quite cheap, because it was really beat up. Now, funnily enough, I've since found out, having no idea of this at the time when I bought this, that this complete in box is actually quite a valuable game. Now, my copy currently is not complete in box. All it has is the insert and cartridge. The cartridge is in fantastic condition, total opposite of the box. The cartridge might be the best conditioned cartridge of any of the games I've got. It's an aftermarket insert because it didn't have an insert. It was just a loose cartridge in box. But it's missing its manual. I've since purchased a manual for this. And in fact, I purchased the manual together with another cartridge, another copy of the game. It's just a loose cart, but it came with a manual. Again, really, really cheap. So I snapped it up. I'll pass the cartridge on to Scott because he doesn't own it, and I'll keep the manual, and I'll put this complete in box. I'll put the manual in this to make it complete in box. I paid, what was it for this one? $25 again for this. Again, without the manual. The manual probably cost me another $10, I'd say, something around that sort of mark. Complete in box, my little app values this at like $120. Like far, far more than almost any game that I've bought. I don't know why it's so valuable. Complete in box. It wasn't the best game in the world. It was good, don't get me wrong. It was a fun game, fun arcade racer for sure. Again, banging cover, love the cover. But yeah, if you know why this is so valuable, complete, I'd love to know. It wasn't a super high profile game. I think it was on multiple systems. It was on the PlayStation as well, if I remember rightly. Yeah, not sure why it's such a high value game. But anyway, there we go. An accidental great purchase. San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing. Yeah, another good one. Another good little arcade racer, that one. All right, so what is a quick crossfade for you has been, God, 4.5, nearly 5 hours for me. Life, man, life. It calls sometimes. But yeah, let's get on with this. Let's crack on and get this done. Where are we at? Last racer, Last racer-ish. Was another cheap one. Again, complete in box, and that is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Now, this one has the remnants of a sticker seal still on one side. I think I'm going to be able to get that off fairly easily. But what I thought was really interesting about this particular game was it still has an original price sticker. $89.95. $90 Episode 1 Racer cost back in the day. $90. That's like, in what year was this? Does it say? I can't easily see a year on it. Whenever, it must be pretty close to when the movie came out, right? Anyway, that was a lot. 1999. There we go. 99. Did that movie come out in 99? I thought it came out after that. Anyway, around that time, $90. Yeah. You know, again, the argument is that games cost a lot now, and they do, but they always have. And, you know, that would have been a lot of money to drop on a game. Like, no wonder we only got a few games for our consoles back then when we were kids, and we just played the absolute shit out of them because they were fucking expensive, man. So this one is, as I said, complete in box. This was a little bit more expensive. Where's my list here? $35. This one set me back. So a little bit more expensive than the others. I think, I mean, I say a little bit more expensive. That's still a really good price for complete and boxed retro Nintendo. But it's all there. We've got our cartridge and original insert. We've got a manual that's in really, really, really good condition. That's probably the best conditioned manual out of any of these games for sure. Yeah, I had a good time with this one. I didn't own Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I really liked Star Wars Episode 1. I know that's not a fashionable thing to say, but I really, really enjoyed that movie. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I don't have a lot of connection to the originals. I'm more of a Trekkie. But I really enjoyed Episode 1 when it came out. I liked it all through the period of time where it wasn't fashionable to like the prequels. And I still like it now. That it's back in the back in the good graces again now that the more recent sequels have come out. But yeah, this was a fun little racer, a bit of a different take on arcade racing. Another kind of like had a bit of an F-Zero kind of vibe to it, like a really fast-paced kind of racing game. Yeah, a rental for me back in the day. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Definitely had a good time with it. And again, another cheap, complete in-box Nintendo 64 game for the shelf. So I was happy to take that one off. I don't know if I'm going to leave the price sticker on or not, because I think that's like whenever I see stuff like that on old games, like when they still have their original prices on them, I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool little reminder of the time period, you know? So yeah, let me know. Let me know if you think I should get rid of that sticker. I think I probably could if I wanted to. Doesn't look like it's going to be an easy removal, but I think I could probably do it. But yeah, let me know if you think I should leave it on or take it off. All right, so that is the strictly racing games finished. I've got one more pseudo racer, And if you watch the channel or have watched it recently at all, you'll know that I've actually played this game this year, I believe. Yeah, I think it was this year. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. So it's like, well, then why did you buy it, Jamie? Why is it in the collection? I think it's because it is kind of like an iconic Nintendo 64 title. You know, when you think of the Nintendo 64, there are certain games that sort of come to mind, and I feel like this is one of them. It was a bit of a critical darling, even though I didn't think all that much of it, and that is 1080 snowboarding. Yeah, I think it's because it was only 2-player, and I think for a racing game in particular, that's a bit of a shame. And I didn't think it made a great racing game. You know, it just wasn't a terribly interesting or enjoyable racer. I think that the focus here was probably definitely more on the tricks themselves, which I don't, find a whole lot of enjoyment in personally. I didn't superly love the Tony Hawk's games either. But again, an iconic title for the time. So this one's got an aftermarket insert, but the cartridge is in really good shape. Manual there as well. And I even got a lovely little note, a lovely little drawing that I've kept in this case as well from the seller, which I thought was very cute. I'll just try and get it here for you. There we go. Wasting time. What a cool little touch. I thought that was cool. I'll keep that in the box with it, I think. But this one's in really, really good condition. The box itself, again, the usual corner scuffs and nicks and things, but like I've said, I actually like that. I kind of want that. $30 this one set me back. So yeah, I thought that was for one of the big hitters on the console for the time. Complete inbox for $30. I don't hate the game, don't get me wrong. I don't despise it. I think it's all right. I just don't think it was as good as it was hyped up to be. But for $30, I sure as hell was very, very happy to have that in the collection and on the shelf. Like I said, anything I think Nintendo 64 that's complete in box, I'm going to have nostalgia for one way or another, So, last up is a game I did play quite a bit of and liked quite a lot. It's I consider them a pair of games. This is the sequel, the second game in that series. Could I call it a series? I guess so, ish. Let's just show you what it is, and that is WCW versus NWO Revenge. I loved these games. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. This actually arrived just this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to really properly clean this one up or get it sorted. It was actually really, I don't know if you can make it out. No, it's a bit hard. It was really, really covered in tape on one side, really badly taped up. So I have removed all the tape without taking any of the art off the box, which is great. I'm very happy with that. This is another complete in-box game, and finding copies of this one complete in box is really hard. They're not very plentiful here in Australia at all. This is in fact one of the only listings I could see for decent money. All the other copies, and there weren't many, the other copies of this game that were available complete in box wanted some, 3 figures sort of thing. But there's the manual, cartridge and insert. Looks like an original insert, which is great. So it's all there, complete in box. This is my most expensive Nintendo 64 purchase for this particular haul. And that was at $48 I paid, and I think I got a really good bargain on this game. Like I said, this is not an easy one to find, complete in box, and when you do find them, they're quite pricey. I love this game. I probably played its predecessor more, and WCW versus NWO World Tour, I think I put more hours into that game, but I certainly played this one a lot. They're basically the same game. I think they've got a slightly different roster, different costumes, that sort of thing, but mechanically, I think they're identical, really. So if you played one, you played the other. This and World Tour were on my top 10 couch multiplayer games of all time list that we did on the channel recently. I would almost go as far to say that for me, if you had 4 players, this was more fun than Smash Brothers, I think. This and World Tour. Controversial statement, perhaps, and I love Smash Brothers. I think it's great. But this was just so fucking good. This was such a good time. 4-player, whether you played 2v2 or all in. Yeah, it was just a great game. A really, really solid, really fun multiplayer game. Sleepover staple, the WCW NWO games. Really enjoyed them. I never owned either of them, but they were like regular rentals for me if I could get a hold of them. And certainly if I had buddies over, I would definitely try and get these ones if I could. But yeah, such a good game. So good. If one day I can find out a way or figure out some way of giving this another shot, I'd like to go back and revisit it and see if it actually is as good as I remember, because I do remember it very, very fondly. And yeah, the World Tour is also on my list to get. Also very hard to get complete in box. Also very expensive. So I am keeping an eye out, but my intention is to get both of them for the shelf for sure. But yeah, happy to have that one for now, and especially happy to have it for the price that I paid. They did me a really, really good deal on that one. All right, that is it for Nintendo 64. I have only one game left to share, and that is one of my Grail games. And there's a little bit of a story behind it. And I can't... Like, just looking at it, sitting there, is just kind of surreal, honestly. Like, I can't believe that it's actually here, but it is. It is an NES game. It's one of the 3 NES games that I ever owned back in the heyday of the system, and it was probably my favorite game on the system that I played, and that is Double Dragon 2. Now, look at that box art, man. Like, I've said it before, this is one of the greatest box covers in video game history, I think. It is so 80s cool. That artwork is just so badass. Yeah, played a absolute ton of this game. Really, really loved it. What makes this such a special pickup for me is that this is complete in box. Now, there were loose cartridges available of Double Dragon 2. There were boxed cartridges available. But to get this game complete in box, I only saw, not many listings. And the ones I saw were like hundreds of dollars. Way, way, way out of my price range. So the funny story behind this particular copy is that I wanted to try and find whether it was going to be cheaper for me to piece together a copy, right? Instead of shelling out $300, $400, $500 for a complete in box copy, which just wasn't going to be possible. Whether I could put a Frankenstein together, because sometimes, it can be much, much cheaper to do it that way. If you can find the box and a loose cartridge and a manual, and then there you go, there's your complete in box copy. But the manual for this game is what makes it really valuable. The manual is so, so hard to find here in Australia. And there just were not many available. They were in the US. They were very expensive. I saw a couple that were, far more expensive than just like the actual game itself. But while searching for Double Dragon 2 manual, there was one single listing that came up for a complete in-box copy of Double Dragon 2 for $49. And I was like, what? is that for real? That can't be real. So I bought it and eagerly awaited its arrival to see whether I had been duped or not. And this is what showed up. So it is 100% a legitimate box, no question about it. It is fairly battered. It's missing a tab, but overall in pretty good condition. It did have some sticker residue on the cover that I have removed. And when it's in a box protector, it looks fantastic. And it also came with a legitimate Nintendo cartridge sleeve, as well as the cartridge itself. There it is. Label in really, really good condition. Looks, yep, spot on. There's a little bit of a nick on the top, but all the bits and pieces are there on the back. And then the manual also, you know, it's a little bit creased, but also in really good condition. Almost like, you know, how is this possible kind of condition, I think, for such an old game. Man, game manuals, especially these old ones that run you through level by level, so good. So yeah, I was just a little bit dumbfounded when this showed up and it was all there and all legit and in this kind of condition. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's actually kind of nuts. So there it is. There is my complete inbox copy of Double Dragon 2 in the collection. And now that it's here, I'm going to get a box protector back on it, and then it is going to, we can cross our very first Grail game off the list. Our first Grail acquired. Double Dragon 2 The Revenge in the collection. Yeah, so many good memories. So many good memories. Again, another game that was on my top 10 couch multiplayer games of all time. So many hours put into Double Dragon 2, as I'm sure was the case for a lot of people in that era. Yeah, just such a good co-op experience, or it was. This is one of those games where I'm not sure how well it holds up compared to some more modern retro brawlers that have come out more recently, you know, that have a modern sensibility to them. But I have played this fairly recently on the NES Mini at an arcade here. I've given it a few goes, and it's still fun. Like with a buddy, it's still fun. And again, when you only have 3 cartridges for a system, you pour the hours into these games. So, yeah, so good. Double Dragon 2 into the collection and on the shelf, and I am elated that it is here. That's so cool. So that is going to do it from me for this haul. Yeah, what a week. Like, this is so good. Ico, Arcanum, all like my first Nintendo 64, like the beginnings of my Nintendo 64 collection. I mean, look at this. Like, just in this little collection of games right here, those spines, there are so many memories in there for me, all contained in that little row of cardboard and plastic. Man, yeah, that makes me incredibly happy. Like that era of gaming is, I just have so much fondness for it. It's definitely where my love of video games came from. My love of couch multiplayer. And yeah, I just think having those on the shelf is going to be fantastic, but just searching for complete inbox Nintendo 64 games, I just think is going to be so much fun in and of itself. So there's still a long way to go. I'm not trying to get a complete exhaustive set of PAL Nintendo 64 by any stretch of the imagination, but there's still a lot of big hitting titles to put on the shelf alongside these ones. If you saw my Grail games video, you know that the bulk of my Grail games come from the Nintendo 64, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun hunting them down. So that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching the collection this week. I hope you had a good time. And make sure you keep on side-scrolling, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.